Welcome to Hi Bob, the officially unofficial podcast for All Mankind on Apple TV Plus. I'm Jim,
And I'm Aaron.
and today we're talking season 4, episode 5, titled Goldilocks. Aaron, was this episode a little too cold, a little too hot, or just right for you?
I was thinking about what to say about this podcast, this episode on the podcast, and I think I've come up with this is the best worst episode of For All Mankind I've ever seen. Let me explain. I like everything they're doing with the character beats of all the established characters that I actually care about, and I think that is executing on an extremely high level. And it's in stark contrast with the Miles and Sams and Ilya's of the world, which I think is almost stupid. And how they're I think it seems like we got feedback to suggest that maybe we're alone on this, but like I find a lot of the situations they're trying to maneuver on Mars, the lower decks people, to be just preposterous. You know, we talked about like, you know, we were going to criticize last week's episode heavier if Miles and Sam don't come back to the base, met with an armed escort for, you know, and obviously that didn't happen. Obviously that's not a problem. Miles has had no problem establishing the supply chain under Ilya's. I thought the way Ilya found it is preposterous, was stupid.
Yep.
But like, is that bringing? But all the other, like, I really like the geopolitics. I really like how succinctly this show is kind of hinting at the problems that the American politics have. And, you know, even in this kind of more utopian, better world, that there's still, you know, shit politicians and shitty politics and clumsy maneuvers on the international stage. And I like that. The thing I want to connect with is the worker struggle on Mars, and I just feel like they're just not servicing that well at all. But yeah, Dani versus Ed. Oh my God. Amazing.
Yeah.
Dev and Kelly and Aleda, I thought was amazing. It's just, whew. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I don't know why we have to sacrifice believability for drama here, because I think there's just as much drama to mine out of getting a phone call to his wife, to Lee's wife, as there is to getting her onto the station, which to me seems like just a complete non-starter, and Lee should know that, right? Like maybe he thinks that, you know, like you said, the Americans have some kind of crazy freedom going on there, and anybody can come up to Mars, but it doesn't seem to make any sense to me. And then, yeah, not having at least a mention of, hey, we really got away with something there, huh? Taking that rover out to save you. You owe us, buddy. We should have been arrested when we got back. I don't know why we weren't. Yeah, man, I that's a bridge too far for me in a lot of ways. That said, I think, yeah, the stuff that they're doing character-wise is pretty outstanding. I got choked up in a couple of scenes with, you know, Kelly watching old videos of Karen, and even Dev scenes. You know, Dev, I'm primed to not trust, and yet I see him in so much pain over the decisions that he's made in the past and the things that have happened to him, and I'm like, can't help but feel for the guy. But I don't know, man. Yeah, they're walking this tightrope right now of me enjoying the drama and the character beats just enough to go along with the bullshit that they're pulling on the plot side, and that doesn't feel like For All Mankind of previous seasons to me.
Yeah, and I hope it's because they're biting off more than they can chew. There's just way too many things they're trying to get into the commentary, and they're also trying to set up next season and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know, man, because like it seems certain that at least Miles and Sam are going to be a core of like new characters that go forward. I don't know why you spend this much time on them, but it's just like, oh my God, to the extent that I'm going to have to care about these people even more in the future, because they're going to be the next generation. They're going to be season 5 core backbone for All Mankind. Mm-hmm. I wish they were more than just like what feels like cardboard cutouts that say, you know, very like they just like that. Oh, it. I thought when Sam coming in to talk about her being torn between getting to do her spacewalk versus, you know, her proletariat ennui was some of the worst written dialogue I've ever seen, and delivered with no conviction. And it's just, oh man. And that's the problem. Like although, man, I kind of felt the same way about Dev. It's like, am I really invested in this guy like for a long term? And his character really clicked into place this episode. I'm like, this explains this very weird guy, and his react. Yeah, and that's the other thing is like, For All Mankind's always been like a sneaky emotional show. I never think of it as like being a tearjerker or something, but I'll be damned if like every season it hasn't gotten the waterworks going at least once or twice, and it certainly did for me. But yeah, I guess the main sequence of the characters that are established and that stuff is all working really well. So it's not a fatal problem, and I've seen good shows go through rough patches before in terms of
much worse ones.
Justified, Boardwalk Empire, hell, even Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul have gone through like several episode stretches where I'm like, I'm not sure if I agree with where this is going, but
gotcha.
Yeah, it does, but it does seem like they are coloring outside the lines a bit more than I've seen in previous seasons.
Yeah, I think thematically the stuff they're doing is interesting. It's almost a return to some of the earlier stuff in For All Mankind with, the space program's toll on families. I'm finding that stuff pretty compelling. How it's both a positive and a negative on the people whose lives it touches. And yeah, I can't tell if they've said everything they're going to say on that just because like that's the nature of it, or if they're trying to get to some thesis on what should we be doing with people who need to be in these very important and mission critical positions, but also have families and like other responsibilities. Do we come down on them and say you can't have those? Do we try and make accommodations for those people? Like, I don't know where the show's going with it, but I'm definitely curious to see.
Feels like it's going the NCC 1701D. Just fucking bring the families, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm kind of excited to see the kids go into space.
I want to see Commander Poole getting hit by a snowball coming out of the holodeck, because the kids are in there playing.
Look, it wouldn't be the first time this kid was in space.
True. He was in a slightly more sophisticated life support system the previous time, but
he had a really good suit, but he was on Mars.
He's wearing his mom MMU Mars utility suit. I think that you're right that the pull between duty, like in its classic sense, in the For All Mankind sense, to making the world a better place, to discovery, to advancement of humanity as a whole, versus your obligations to individual humans, your family, your friends, your social circles. I thought that stuff was a really interesting meditation, and like all the different motivations people can have, like money versus like the more high-minded, NASA kind of ideals of exploration and things like that. I thought it was really interesting. It's stuff that I wrestle with. It's like, as a father, do I take this better job halfway across the country and uproot my kid's schedule, or maybe he goes a couple months in a row without seeing me, or do I turn that down to be more available but then have less resources to provide? Like those, like I said, that stuff seems like it's incredibly nuanced. And like I said, it's none of these issues I think are fatal. It's just like I'm really rolling my eyes pretty hard through some of the Malosh and Ilya stuff, and I think they need to course correct on that. But I don't know, maybe Ilya just poisoned Miles, and I'm not gonna have to, worry about it.
We'll see. All right, maybe we should get into the recap here.
Yeah, let's do it.
We start off on July 2nd, 2003. The Payne Space Telescope picks up a new asteroid near Mars. NASA, Helios, the Soviets, and even the news react to the discovery that there's a shitload of iridium in it, worth $20 trillion, and the window to grab it is closing.
So I think we've seen this Payne telescope before. I think that they were servicing it on a mission in season 3. It's interesting because this looks like the James Webb Space Telescope, but it is not functioning or acting anything like the James Webb Space Telescope. It doesn't seem like it's at a Lagrange point. It doesn't seem like it's scanning deep. Like you would never point to James Webb at like a planet or like the source of that intense light, you know. It's another one. It's like I wonder. It's like, you know, I felt like they were a little bit more careful about adapting NASA projects and you know, having them be like accelerated in time, but like not, you know, still kind of true to their purpose and stuff. I thought about those Sea Dragon missiles that were so cool. But it's the reminder. This is it's not called the James Webb because this is named after Thomas Paine, the director of NASA that was exploded in an airline disaster. He was the director of NASA for the Republican administrations, Nixon and Reagan. So he got the Molly Cobb treatment with the naming of this telescope.
Nice.
What do you know about Iridium?
Nothing.
I did some research because I had some time this morning. First of all, it said this is a Jovian Trojan that got perturbed out of its orbit. And apparently there's a whole class of asteroids that share the orbit of Jupiter. But Jupiter being so big and powerful, it has pushed all of those asteroids into the only ones that it hasn't swallowed or hurled out of the solar system kind of nestle in the Lagrange points, the L4 and L5 points, which are, if you know anything about Lagrange points, when you have like an orbital system, the interplay between the gravitational attraction of the thing it's orbiting and the orbiting itself creates these stable kind of like points at certain geometric locations around the thing that even though there's nothing there, you can actually orbit it as if it is a source of gravity. That's where the James Webb Telescope, it's at I think that L5 point of the moon Earth system. So it's like way far away and it's going to be stable there, but it's not around a planet. So these things are like at 60 degrees ahead of Jupiter's orbit and 60 degrees behind it. And they're called Trojans because I guess the two groups, one's called the Greeks, one are the Trojans because astronomers are nerds like that.
Okay.
Iridium, and that's supposedly there's supposed to be like a million 1 kilometer size objects in this asteroid belt that is not the actual asteroid belt, which I thought was interesting. And iridium is the second most dense metal that we know of. The only denser is, I think, osmium, but it's highly reactive and toxic. Iridium is famous for being extremely hard, extremely difficult to manufacture, and extremely high melting point, and its extreme non-reactivity. So it's also extremely rare because it is so heavy that most of the iridium in Earth sank to the core with all the nickel and iron when the Earth is still a hot ball of shit and it was differentiating by gravity. So like there is, guess how much tonnage the entire world produces of iridium each year?
60
tons? Less than 7 tons of iridium are mined across the entire Earth.
Jeez.
In a year. So it's extremely rare. It's very useful. Like some of its main uses are for crucibles, in high temperature, high pressure crystalline manufacturing, and that is how we make integrated circuits. You know, those are all silicon crystal wafers that have to be made to exacting tolerances, and iridium lined crucibles are what hold those molten crystals as they're forming. Iridium tipped spark plugs are the reason that our engines last 10,000 miles or 100,000 miles instead of 10 or 20,000 miles between tune-ups, because iridium can resist the high temperature blast of electrical spark that hits the spark plugs.
Yeah, for all mankind doesn't have any of those. It's all electric.
And the other thing that they do is they're very useful for like biomedicine. There's certain radioactive isotopes of iridium that they can insert like little splinters inside cancer cells to direct radiation right to the cancer instead of just like blasting the whole body section with
kind of thing. For
radiation. Yeah. And since they're stable and unreactive, they're like perfect for that purpose. So there's a lot of like really high tech uses, which is why everyone's horny for them and for all mankind.
Yeah.
So But yeah, I didn't know
And
because I'm like, Iridium? What the fuck? I honestly have no idea why this is such a big deal.
we know why it's a big deal for the Russians. Apparently, it's one of the Soviet Union's biggest exports, and they are not eager to lose a valuable income source from exporting that. Because there would be no
Yeah.
need to export it if they caught this massive $20 trillion worth of iridium.
And it sounds like that they are, the Russia's had economic problems trying to, navigate the transition between, their Soviet form of communism and more open capitalism. And obviously, if you have a big, important, expensive, like I think iridium is worth like half of gold right now. If you just flood the market with $70 trillion of that, that's going to hurt the Russian economy. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
bad news all around.
Lot of fear mongering on the news about something that's potentially very good for humanity is being spun as, well, this is another job destroyer. We remember what happened with Helios and Helium-3, and when that became popular, everybody was out of work. There was so much strife. It caused terrorism and all sorts of things.
Because the technology did that. The technology turned people into terrorists.
Yeah, it wasn't the fact that they didn't have anywhere to turn because they didn't have any way out of the bad situation that not having a job puts you in that economy. So
it's NASA's fault. Wasn't bad government policy. It's now they should try not discovering things, honestly.
Yeah, just let's stick to the status quo on every front, and everything will be fine. Yeah. And we find out
people
that
have been saying this for a long time.
Some people have been saying this for a long time.
It's literally true. Literally true. Just stop. Everything's good enough right now. Okay, we don't need any more stuff.
And the date here, July 2nd, 2003, is supposed to let you know, hey, if a few months have passed, and if you didn't, notice it in this scene, they're gonna say later, essentially, these past few months or whatever.
Yeah.
Since they sent Svetlana down. All right, Danielle dreams of Happy Valley at the time when they were rationing their food, waiting for rescue, and she delivers Dani, the bad Dani, some meals in exile, and then she's awakened to hear the asteroid news.
It is neat now that they're aging everybody up. It's cool that they can do flashbacks effortlessly. It's like, hey, you guys, Chris Marshall and you have to spend like 10 minutes or an hour less in makeup. Just show up with a little bit of aging and you're good to go. But it's cool. It's very as bad as some of the aging makeup. Like when you see them 10 years ago, it's like, oh right, yeah, okay, it looks good. It looks realistic.
I gotta ask you, now that Dani is back, bad Dani, were you more excited or maybe excited is not the right word. Were you more eager to satisfy an itch of knowing what happened to bad Dani, or were you more disappointed that bad Dani is back in the show when you saw this scene?
I was the first time I was through this, I'm like, oh my god, are we finally going to get this answer? And do I care about this answer? And I honestly, I was a little underwhelmed.
I mean, we already knew the answer. There was no real mystery around it, right? He died on Mars, and the only mystery is how.
Yeah, I think that everyone kind of come around to the idea he died on Mars, but and I think suicide was a popular theory, but like the circumstances why. How did Ed feel about it? How did Danielle feel about it?
I mean, we know how they would both feel about it.
Did he use the North Korean's pistol? Did he, did he pop his head? I was hoping that I was hoping he cracked his faceplate. I was hoping that he actually just just opened up the sunroof, like was it Tim Robbins did that on Mission to Mars?
Oh, does he? I don't remember.
It's just roll down the window, just breathe in the Martian atmosphere. I was kind of disappointed that he just did the slow asphyxiation point. But yeah, I don't know. Seems like there'll be some emotional fallout from this, but like I mean, it's tough for me because I thought the Dani Karen stuff was the by far worst shit, the most unwatchable shit this show has done, and this keeps hanging around like a stale fart,
Oh yeah, I think this is the end of it though. both of those people are dead at this point. I know we got them both back in this episode, but also this feels like a final time. I don't think we ever need to explore like the feelings about Dani in the future.
Wait till you start off a scene in federal prison and it's Jimmy.
You're right.
You might be right though, because like not only did they deal with Dani, but like immediately Danielle and Ed used that as a weapon to try to hurt each other. So it's like it seems like that we're about out of gas with the storyline, but dear God,
and
I've said
characters
that 3 or 4 times before.
And the characters who had relationships with him, and especially in this scenario, are now seemingly going to be split up as well. So I don't see a lot of future potential for the storyline. I was satisfied to see it come to a conclusion because I was curious how it happened, but I already knew all of the emotional fallout from it, right?
Yeah.
Like, of course, Dani, who's trying to mentor the kid, is going to feel bad about it. Ed, who hates the kid for, being a derelict of duty, is going to not feel bad about it at all.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he did. His face says he felt a little bad.
I think Ed, and we also know that Dani, from Danielle, the good Dani, that he fell apart. Like, he kind of went completely AWOL mentally and emotionally, and her and Kuz had to hold the whole base together, which we saw was in bad shape. That's the other thing. Like, this is, I'm wondering what kind of spice this is going to add, Ed hurling the accusation of quitter to her. Because Ed likes to project a lot, seems like. And I like, if he checked out mentally on that mission after Dani, no wonder Danielle's like, fuck this, I'm going home, And then maybe Ed should have made that decision too. Go home, be with Kelly and his granddaughter. But, I mean, Ed, it feels like this episode, and I hate it because Ed's, he's up there in terms of my favorite characters. But it's like he's the living embodiment of, Harvey Dent's theory on Batman, that you either die the hero or you live long enough to become the villain. Because like, what would season 1 or 2 Ed think of this Ed that is inarguably putting people's lives in danger for his own glory?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I feel like he's been progressively stepping in it. You've seen his foot coming down into the pile of shit for the last couple of seasons now, and this is the scene where it finally hits.
It's too bad Molly's dead, because I feel like she's the only one that could both fully understand Ed's bullshit and impulses, and the only one that could actually check him, and vice versa. They acted as very good checks and balances on each other's ego. And
it was so sad.
She died the hero, so it left him to descend into craftitude as the villain, I guess.
Apparently, yeah. I'm so sad to see it go this way, because I talked earlier, in the season about how Danielle and Ed share a special relationship, and that should be extremely valuable to both of them and meaningful.
And it is.
And it doesn't. But it's not manifesting in the ways you would want it to, right? It's manifesting in anger and resentment.
Yeah, especially, and I understand where Dani's anger and resentment comes from, because we talked about, like, she literally broke her arm to try to help out the bros here, and she's when that speech she gives about the mistake after mistake, like I feel that, because that's kind of like what we've been talking about these last 2 seasons. Like, Ed just makes some bad calls based on being an emotional kind of cowboy, and I understand. Like, I'm not being super harsh and judgy about Ed, although you can't kill people because you got a shaky hand, and you got to think, like, knowing what we know now, you go back to that first episode, if someone else is in that command chair, does Kuz die? Is someone that doesn't have to worry about their hand trembling and keep that throttle feathered properly, can they get that asteroid's oscillations under control? I mean, I don't know. It seems like the Russians fucked up the manufacturing process too, but we know for certain an American was putting the whole mission in risk for an absolutely inexcusable reason.
Can you imagine, flip that around, somebody else is at the seat there and they have the shaky hand, and Ed's the commander at the base, and he finds out about that? He blows his top. He goes off on them, right? The way that Danielle does here. Like, It's a shame because, yeah, I think you talked about early seasons Ed. He definitely would have the same reaction that Danielle's having. You put everyone that is on your mission's lives in danger because you're too much of an ego monster to ever say, yeah, I can't handle this.
Well, he knows his body, so
sure. Yeah, no, I'm 100% with Danielle this episode. I think the base, things have been getting more tense on the base since Danielle showed up, but that's only because of circumstance. I think she's doing a great job as a commander, trying to come in here and fix a lot of problems that were festering under Ed's command. I guess not Ed's command, but, with Ed advising the commander of the base.
Yeah, I think the previous commander might have been a little bit more of a pushover, and maybe that's part of the problem is Ed just got used to kind of having his way as the old man at Mars, and Koo's backing him up. But yet a lot of the friction has been coming from Ed, and I think it's really telling that Palmer informed on him because, that's a person who clearly worships Ed and is kind of disillusioned and devastated by his hero not acting like a hero should, and but it's I don't know. We're gonna step all over the confrontation later on, but you're right.
Right.
I think most thinking people are going to be on Dani's side, even if you are sympathetic to what Ed's going through, and I find myself sympathetic, but my sympathy stops when he's putting people's lives in risk and when he's being just a complete shit to his commanding officer.
Oh my God, the attitude he's copping this episode. Yeah,
like I said, I always do this with Riker and Picard. I'm just like, there's no fucking way, no fucking way.
All right, President Gore reminds Eli how important it is that America capture this asteroid and fast. They have to approach it delicately though, because the M7 nations each want their own piece of the asteroid, and the Soviets specifically don't want to lose their Iridium export profits. Kind of talked about that part already. But there's this new character, Ron, I think is his name, and he seems like a real ball buster. He works for the president, and he's got his fingers here in the NASA pie.
What if he's supposed to be Gore's chief of staff or something?
Yeah, I don't really know yet.
And we never had a Gore administration, so I wouldn't know to look him up. I mean, this is the part of the political bullshit where it's like Marv, who should have a feather in his cap for finding a way to steer between the canyon walls of the Russia-U.S. positions on Svetlana, and thinks, and Al Gore's impressed with him, but it's quickly like, what have you done for me lately? Because you did that great. The president's grateful, but also if you fuck up this asteroid thing and we don't get elected, it's gonna be your fault. Like, boy, poor Marv.
Yeah.
Might be time to plug up the sinks and leave the water running and get out of there, Marv.
Yeah, the cops are
one
coming.
last heist, buddy.
I don't know. We'll talk more about that when he kind of discusses things with the Russian space commander here. But Danielle sets the stakes for her team up in Happy Valley. They have 10 weeks to grab this asteroid or it's gone. Ed cops a major attitude with Danielle during the meeting, so she pulls him aside to try and clear the air. That doesn't go too well.
Man, look at the staff too. Like, the way they're looking at each other when she's dragging him into her ready
Super
room
awkward.
to yell at him. Yeah, it's as bad. He's talking about being bad for morale. I don't know. The show's telling me that Ed is playing this completely wrong and interpreting this completely wrong.
Yeah, nothing she says there just strikes me as like running around flapping our arms. Like, Ed's just being an asshole here because he's pissed about Svetlana.
And he kind of wants Dani to fail. And it's like, this is like the exposed to kind of the lazy hypocrisy of Ed, is because he seems like he wants it both ways. Like when he's talking to the lower decks people, it's all rah, 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 where's your service to country and your duty and all that. But then when it's like Dani trying to put out military protocol, it's all like, this isn't a NASA government. This is, he's trying to have it both ways and interpret everything into his benefit. And I as a long-term good Danielle fan, the way that Ed is treating her as a commander in front of the troops, so to speak, is just beyond the pale.
Oh, and that call
blood boiling
on the Ranger later is just like the worst, man.
Yeah. And good Dani's trying to salvage it, she's trying to
she's
do her
taking him
thing,
aside, not blowing him up right here in front of everybody. She's doing it right.
Right, and when she's on open comms, trying to have a disagreement with him, she's not going to have a knockdown, drag out, and all. But boy, Ed, I don't know. Does he interpret all this as weakness, or does he interpret this as? Does he think he's untouchable because he is the old man of Mars and
he's
he has
certainly
such a
acting
storied...
like it? Yeah.
And there might be some blowback on this. Like he might have enough cronies in NASA and at Helios and even the U.S. government admirers that he might be able, because unless you're on Mars, how the fuck do you know how far Ed's fallen?
Sure.
If he calls crying that oh, Danielle came out of retirement, she's busted my she clipped my wings, and if we don't make the asteroid capture, it's going to be because she made this person up. I'm kind of worried that Danielle might be on a hot seat just because of Ed's bullshit.
Yeah. I don't know, because she's got Hobson and seemingly, well, it depends on how far he falls from grace with this whole asteroid thing, because, if his reputation gets tarnished with the president, maybe there isn't the safety net that Danielle has to say, hey, Hobson, you hired me to do a job. This guy's interfering with it. Get him out of here.
But that seems like they're maneuvering pieces that he's going to feel that political pressure. Like I can already hear Al's like, damn it, Marv, this asteroid thing's touch and go, and now you got a command change, and you got the CO and the XO at each other's throats. Like, what is going on up there? Yeah, it's not going to be good.
I think Hobson's just going to walk into the ocean, never be seen again. I don't know, man. He's taking it on all sides here. It's rough for Hobson.
Yeah.
I feel bad for him.
And even his wins don't mean anything. He had a huge win last episode, and it's fuck you, pay me,
Yeah. I found it hilarious for Danielle in this scene right before Ed does his Ed stuff to be saying, okay, all personal matters are taking a back seat. We got to get this mission done. Good luck with the personal stuff taking a back seat with Ed, because Ed is he's all about the personal matters at the moment.
Yeah, and the other thing is the fact that they shake on, all right, bygones, we're going to reinvest, make this mission happen, and then we find out the very next scene he's been doing a whole bunch of bullshit behind her back and self-serving promotions and rearranging her crew. Just it's like I said, it's I do love me some Ed, but it's really painful to watch. It's really painful to watch.
Yeah, he should have gone home. I don't know if he would have been happier there, but everybody else would have.
Although I will say this is another thing about the show being a little bit dumber than previous seasons. The fact that no one has mentioned that this man has spent his declining years in 1/3 Earth's gravity. No one's even said. I would have respected the show a bit more if Ed had been at some point, I thought about going back, but I talked to the flight surgeons and there's some real concern about my bone density or my cardiovascular system or whatever. But
lung capacity, probably.
I mean, he's been here for 15 years straight. And he's an old man. He was taking testosterone and HGH just to keep flight ready back when he was spending a lot of time in Earth gravity. So it's weird that they haven't even mentioned that.
Yeah, he'd step out of the ship, out of the shuttle on Earth, and he'd just crumple like Obi-Wan's robes. I
feel if you spin from 60 to 75 on Mars and you came back to Earth, you would never walk again.
Yeah,
you might be labored breathing.
Oh, definitely labor breathing with as much smoking as he's done. He's trying to terraform Mars. He's definitely got some lung capacity issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. He might not be able to go home, but they don't address that. That's not a concern for Ed, right? He's simply doesn't want to go home because he loves space and he doesn't love his family all that much, apparently. Okay, let's go over to Ilya's bar, where Miles spots Sam getting friendly with an Italian, I think. He says grazie at one point. Neither he or Ilya are happy about it. They get back to work discussing Lee's wife. Ilya says, yeah, we're not going to be able to get her up here, but they need to break the news to Lee at the right time. But in the meantime, they're going to lie to him.
Yeah, that's the thing. I as you heard last episode, I was trying to find a way to square this. Like, what's the reasonable ask here? Is he trying to bring his wife's ashes home? Is he trying to bring a picture? Is he trying to secure a community? No, they're making it very clear that Lee expects them to smuggle his wife through the Martian cargo system.
Yep. With like a breathing apparatus.
I'm like, you can't fucking smuggle a person from like China to the United States in the belly of an airplane. Let alone, this seems just beyond stupid.
It's batshit crazy, I think. Yeah, this was one of the breaking points for me in the episode. I'm like, oh, they literally mean they want to get her up here on Mars. That's asinine.
And the fact that like no one is saying, like, I'm glad that Ilya's. I wish Ilya's like, look, it's not possible. We all know it's not possible. It's an impossible ask, but we gotta find the right way to break. But like Ilya's like, no, it's just too dangerous. It's too much heat on us trying to get. Oh, really? Trying to smuggle a citizen out of North Korea
onto a US
and then
shuttle.
Get her onto a Martian shuttle in the car. It just It doesn't make it makes it, it's like one of those things where it's like I just don't know how to invest in it. It'd be like if there's a plot line where Miles finds a fucking sword embedded into a Russian rock, and if he pulls it out, he can be king of Mars. Like
that's believable.
Maybe if I was watching John Carter or whatever the fuck that thing is, but like I'm watching For All Mankind. What is this sword stuck in a stone and King of Mars business? Like it's that kind of leap for me. Yeah. And I can think that Lee might be delusional enough to think that like all the Americans and they don't follow rules and capitalism and you bribe enough money and you could do whatever you want. And that's true, honestly, most of the time if we're talking about, but like when special circumstances, like being on Mars, you really run up against the limits of what capitalism can do in terms of like especially gray black market smuggler type operations. So
yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this isn't as stupid as I think, but it feels really stupid to me.
Yep, I'm 100% with you. I don't like this plot point at all. And like I said before, I think it's just as dramatic if all he wants is a phone call. And it's hard to get a phone call to her, right? Like,
yeah.
I that's just as meaningful to me. And it seems just about doable. So I don't know. Anyway, who is good enough for Sam, do you think? Ilya says, yeah, this Italian guy.
The other thing is, can we also give pause to think about how phenomenally, like, let's say you get her out of North Korea. You get her into the cargo bay. She survives on tubes of oxygen and chapstick, like on the way up there. She's consuming whatever they got in the thing
for months. Yeah.
What do you do with her on base?
Put her at level 4. Level 4 is where all of the dissidents and fugitives hide out.
Does she live in Ed's grow up? Like, does she because she can't she can't ever be seen by anyone.
Right. I mean, you put her in a jumpsuit, one of these Helios grunt jumpsuits, and no one will ever notice her, right?
I'm dubious.
Yeah,
I'm dubious with the way they track resources up there that they wouldn't notice an extra person.
Yeah, potentially not. Although, Ilya and Miles have the extra resources. They could feed her, right? Just get an extra sandwich from the vending machine or whatever.
Yep.
But no, it's insane. I'm humoring this scenario, but no, this would never happen. It's crazy talk.
Yeah.
And yet the show's talking about it seriously, as if this was a possibility. And maybe these...
Yeah.
I mean, Ilya certainly knows that this is an impossibility. Not just too risky, but impossible.
I'm going to tell you something. I don't think the showrunners know. That's what I think the real problem. I think the people writing this show don't know how dumb this plot is. Because if they did, the easy fix for this is have this was the conversation I was expecting Miles and Ilya to be like, look, we both know this is never going to happen, but we don't want to lose the North Korean market. We don't want our, connection to get blown as far as the thermostat thing. So we got to kind of humor this out until we figure out another solution. The fact that that's not what they're doing tells me that from the show's perspective, it's possible to sneak people out of North Korea, and like, yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough for me.
Yeah, same here. So the lower decks then discuss the asteroid find. Some think it's a good thing. Sam points out that they're going to get screwed by this, but the Italian sees it as a glass half full situation. They can make out like bandits during the process.
Yeah, it's like the Chinese word for crisis is danger plus opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this. Yeah, like I thought this scene in isolation is really good, where it's, you know, like what sells these hard oppressive times is the dream that if we put in the work and the dice fall just right, we can make the jump into, you know, another economic class, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, maybe we'll work 6 or 7 days, maybe it'll be dangerous, but like the gold rush, think of, you know, people will do, like, that's a great I think a great example of the California gold rush is like people would do that to themselves. People would destroy their own bodies. People would work 7 days a week, you know, just for the chance at striking it rich, right?
And that's a better situation than they're in, because those people own the profits of whatever comes of their labor. Here, that's not
Yeah.
true. They
Right.
own whatever piece of the profits that Helios deems worth them getting to get them to do the job. Helios and NASA and these countries are the ones who actually benefit from this, not the people doing the work.
Yeah, the risks are subsidized, the profits are privatized.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I mean, I think Sam sees that. The people who look at this as glass half full don't really see that.
Yeah.
But, you know, overall, there's a larger argument to be made that this would be a good thing for humanity. So you need people doing the work to get the rewards for humanity. So how do you make that happen without exploiting these people, without promising these people things that are never going to come true?
Good question.
All right, Kelly gets Alex ready for school when she hears that Dev is going to Mars, and she goes into Helios to tell Leda about it. And they both go to Dev, upset that he didn't tell him. And he says the action is on Mars, and they need him up there. Dev wants Leda to handle the M7 negotiations, and Kelly and her astrobiology team to go up to Mars with him. Kelly would have to leave her son for months, though, so she's not sure about that plan. And Dev leaves to go tie up some loose ends.
So when I first watched this, I thought this was Dev maybe stealth reneging on his promises.
And Kelly does too,
like,
right?
Yeah,
pushing
like,
it back
yeah,
again,
yeah.
huh?
Oh no, I'm not pushing. I'm accelerating it, but I'm gonna make you an offer that I know you won't take. You're gonna have to leave your kid and go to Mars with me.
Okay.
And then Aleda, it's like, you know, like, oh, I'm not de-emphasizing your prominence in the company. In fact, you're going to be calling all the shots. Like, he's putting these positions where he thinks that people have to turn it down or fail. But after I've watched it, I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe he just is like just really impulsive and he doesn't think it all the way through, but he doesn't want to renege on his promises. So these are good faith efforts because.
Well, it seems like
he expects people to just make the sacrifices and do the things required, and why wouldn't they want to?
That's who he is. He's a pusher. He's a guy who has ambition, has a vision, and pushes everyone around him into that box. And if they don't fit it, he jettisons them and gets somebody who will fit into that box. And
did he get that from his mom or his dad?
I mean, I think he got that from his dad.
His mom seems pretty pushy too, though, just in a different way, like a more Harambe way of pushing than get yours and be ambitious. Yeah, because I don't know because I've never seen his father. I just heard Dev recount stories and see stuff in the news clippings and things like that. But like,
yeah,
man, I was really conflicted about what to think about his mom. I guess we need to wait to get there. But like this episode really upped the complexity of my understanding of Dev's character and who he is
in a good way. Yeah, I really
yeah.
Before I was torn on him, but just based on like his actions around private economic interests versus public good. Now it's bringing in the personal stuff that I feel is connecting pretty well.
That doesn't mean I like agree with his position. I'm just like
Oh, sure.
I think I'm understanding what makes him tick in a way that I really didn't. I had a lot more question marks and head scratching, and he's coming into focus a little more, and it's a much more interesting character as a result.
Yeah, and even in just the span of this episode, they get that new information to be super interesting and relevant to his character, because he now, like, he's pushed Kelly into something that I think he's feeling a little bit of regret over. Like, he's just torn up another family, right? I mean, or potentially well, when she comes in, she's saying, she has a new plan, but before that, he, I think, is thinking about his actions and how, his family was destroyed by this program. Or I guess not technically the NASA program, but his space dreams, and now he's pushing those on other people, forcing them into difficult situations over their families that potentially will tear them apart. I think he's feeling the weight of all that. Like, he's realizing I'm the guy who's destroying families, but I'm also very driven, and I have a vision, and I think it's worth pursuing, and I don't know how to reconcile those two things.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing to see people wrestle with.
For sure, yeah. And Kelly's wrestling with that too. We'll get to that here in a bit. But I thought it's smart resource allocation, right? I mean, as much as I would say bad about Dev, he's also a very agile business person. I mean, the idea of taking Kelly with him to finish the training en route, I think is an extremely smart one, right? It buys you 2 months of time. And even if Kelly just wants to go back home after that, they've still gained that 2 months head start. So,
right.
It's a lot like when Aleda figures out a way to get their supplies to Mars faster than they thought possible in last season. I think these people are extremely capable and versatile.
And I think he also senses an opportunity here, right or wrong, that like this is maybe a once in a generational opportunity. This asteroid will be. We even talked about this, but they established that this asteroid is going so fast that there's exactly a 6-month window before this pure tritium or iridium asteroid is going to be flung out of the solar system, never to be seen again. Now, part of me says, like, well, if there's like 1,000,000 1-kilometer asteroids in these Trojan Lagrange point or Jovian orbits, like, okay, well, maybe we miss this cab, but there'll be another one. The more we explore, the more. But like,
well,
on the other hand,
but will one come this close to Mars? Will one be headed
in our
way?
lifetime?
Right.
And like at this, and so like the idea of like I can't wait for 6 weeks for another trip. I need to be out there now.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's going to be decisions on the ground made, and I need to be out there making them. Like
which is
I understand
super
his
interesting
point.
given who runs this base, right? I mean, this is a joint government operation between the M7 group.
I think the private sector is going to start flexing its muscles.
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's going to, as much conflict as there already is in Happy Valley, Dev getting there won't help.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just another more management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always helpful. All right. Also, there's one other thing. His line about, you spent 15 years on the search for life when he's talking to Kelly. It would be a shame to drop it now that we're so close to the finish line. Dude, this is where he's a bit of a charlatan. He has no idea if they're close to the finish line. They might be close to the fruition of her project, but finding life in outer space that might take another 1,000 years. We don't know.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that there's life on Mars.
And certainly none of the lava tubes that she's putting all of her hopes on. So
no guarantee, but he's playing it like, oh, we are so close to finishing the goal that you set out to accomplish, and it's a joke.
Yeah, he's pumping that sunk cost fallacy pretty hard.
Absolutely. All right, Ed took the liberty of making some changes to his crew list up on the Ranger, which Danielle objects to. Ed cops a major attitude again, but Danielle lets it slide, trying to keep things from blowing up right now. Ed then has to delay a scheduled test due to a shaky hand, and Palmer notices. This is the HR guy from before, right? The drill sergeant HR guy?
Yeah, he's like the XO's XO, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, this is Ed's guy, and even Ed's guy is saying this is a bit much, and
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if Ed played this politically a little bit better. But like, it's like not only are you getting caught with your hand, red-handed in your cookie jar, but it's like you're pissing in the cookie jar too.
Mm-hmm.
Because Danielle's like, you're disregarding protocol, you're doing this, that, the other, and Ed's being like, oh, come on. He's like citing shit that was like maybe true at NASA 25 years ago, but probably hasn't been true since Margot won the culture war over Molly back last season.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I think it's tough to watch to see Ed be this big asshole to Dani.
I agree, and just being a shit about it too, right? There's a way he could have said everything he said in this scene that I wouldn't have felt as bad about, but he's so clearly trying to make this personal.
Yeah, there's like a
real
parenthetical, and what are you going to do about it? At the end of
Yeah.
every voice transmission that just makes your blood boil.
Mm-hmm.
Because like
Danielle is trying.
he's forcing Dani's hand, and when her hand is forced, he's going to be, oh, how dare you raise your hand against me? Like,
Yeah. What does he expect to happen when he's this disrespectful to his commanding officer? It's ridiculous. He would never have tolerated this from one of his subordinates.
Yeah, I did not expect this amount of punk ass bitchery from one Admiral Edward Baldwin, but here we are.
And I know he's dealing with a lot, right? Personally, he feels like his career is coming to an end. He's already made decisions that have alienated his family. Like, there's so much going on personally, but I don't feel like that warrants any of this behavior.
Yeah, and tell that shit to the guys lower decks. They're eating Martian rocks,
right? That
they're calling meatloaf, and for half pay, and their families are home.
Well, you've got a secret weed farm, yeah.
yeah. Come on.
All right, let's go over to Julio's, where Aleda tries to talk Kelly into going into the Mars mission. Kelly gives Aleda also some encouragement, telling her that she's going to be great at negotiating with the M7. I think this is the scene where Kelly figures out the one reason to go, right?
Her son's health problems being solved on Mars, or the...
I mean, the one reason is she really wants to go, but she figures out the one way she can make that happen, I guess.
Yeah.
Because there are a million reasons not to go. But...
And it's tough, man. Like I said, as a parent, it's really tough trying to make decisions about what's best for your family and separate that from what's best for you, and like, is it better to have more resources? Is it better to have more parental time? I think there's also like the thing I kept on thinking that I could never do it is like the idea that something, as routine and safe as space travel apparently is becoming, notwithstanding the first episode when you're trying to lasso an asteroid, the idea that if I die, my kid's an orphan, like their dad's already gone. Like, there's only one other person on this planet that's devoted to, keeping this person alive. He's 7 years old.
Well,
what if she
take
dies too?
Yeah.
Well, but even the babushka, I mean, okay, like she's, like that's the other thing about the grandparent is like she's going to die when he's 20, maybe 30 if he's lucky. It's it's just a bad deal. It's a bad deal. And I'd find it very hard to justify leaving my kid and going someplace that dangerous if the other parent is already, out of the picture.
Sure.
And Kelly's really wrestling with that. And
She is,
I like to see it.
understandably.
Yeah. This is easy to empathize with struggle.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's only one part of what I was talking about, the episode wrestling with the sort of way that the space program fucks with families. Dev's the other side of that. We're going to see that here in a second.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that struck me when I was thinking about this is they're setting up a potential scenario where Ed could be shown for what he is to his family directly. They can come up here and see Ed's sad state. And I think there's two ways that could go. They could play a beautiful ending where he gets to hug his grandson and everything is okay as the old man passes on, or it could cause intense personal devastation. And I don't know which I prefer.
No, that's the fascinating angle. The fact that Kelly is coming here
With
and
his
the fact that
grandson.
Dev is coming here, and the grandson is coming here, and as he's being disgraced publicly.
Maybe they'll
God, what
pass
would
each
Kelly
other
say
on
about
the
this?
way. Like he'll wave to her at the window as he's taken back for court martialing. I don't know.
Yeah. And the other thing that's complicated is Danielle was Kelly's commanding officer too. Like she knows that
True.
Danielle's not a mad woman who's obsessed with power or glory, or she wants her ass in that cockpit.
And she'll see that. Even if she didn't already know that, she'll see it. Like everybody who looks at the scenario knows that Ed's in the wrong here.
Yeah. Yeah, and the way they contrast all this stuff, like slightly different takes of like duty versus honor versus family versus, I think it's just really delicious.
Yeah, everybody's got a different take on it. All right, President Gore takes personal responsibility for the asteroid's discovery on the news, which draws ire and mockery from everyone. Hobson calls Ron pissed off that the president's destroying their goodwill with the other M7 nations, and Ron tells him, elections are more important than your goodwill.
Do you know what they're alluding to here?
With Gore taking personal responsibility for finding this asteroid? Yeah, it's when he claimed that he invented the internet.
Do you, because like it's funny because like back in 2000 I was on the broadly speaking the other side of the political spectrum from where I am today. I was much more conservative and personally, socially, and economically, and I thought this was a real knee slapper, Al Gore trying to claim credit for inventing the internet. But so I looked into it because I actually thought that he actually said that he misspoke. But what he said in an interview, I thought this was like during a debate with Bush. I'd misremembered all these details. What he actually said is he was in a sit-down interview with, I think, CNN. Someone asked him, like, well, why should people support you over your other Democratic contender? And he's like, talking about his like vision for the country's future. And he said, one of the things I did is a bill I passed helped what is his act he said he took the initiative to create the internet, right? And I guess in fact that like in the early 90s when the internet was not the internet, there was no net.
Start ICANN or something, because that's the only way that claim seems credible.
He actually did a whole bunch of funding that poured money into American infrastructure. He had this speech in the 90s where he was going around saying that the coming century, it's not going to be about highways and water pipes and
bridges. We can
lines.
let all that shit go. Nobody cares.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, apparently. This is the Clinton Gore future that we're living in. But what's going to be really important is the lines of communication. Like the only way to take advantage of advancements in the computer power is to have this. And he saw the internet as like the foundation of that. The DARPA project, the TCP/IP. Sure. And the thing is like the people who literally invented the internet, like people like Bob Kahn and Vince Cerf, they agreed. They do give Al Gore credit for being one of the early visionaries in Congress that saw the potential for this technology, this stuff that came out of this, trying to nuclear warproof America's communication infrastructure, and pass bills to like fund the development of that. And had he not, and again, he didn't invent it. He didn't write the fucking TCP/IP stack. But it does seem like what people did is they took his quote, stretched it out beyond its initial meaning. Like if Eisenhower had said in the 60s, the things I put in place helped create the highway system. No one would say that Eisenhower invented the concept of highways. No one is that Eisenhower's out there with a shovel and cement or laying the highways.
But that's because the highways aren't a meme machine. And it just so happens that the thing that Al Gore claimed to have invented, or not claimed to have invented, but had been a big supporter of, is a thing that is specifically designed to churn out bullshit and misinformation. And so everything that happened, like every single word that he said there was just spun into this meme of Al Gore invented the internet.
Yeah. And also, like, to be fair, the thing about Al Gore is like I it does seem like he's a little bit of a fabulist. He does he does tend to like stretch accomplishments. He does tend to do that kind of like debate brain thing where he takes any advantage. And but the also thing is like looking back over the last 20 years, I got to say Al Gore probably on balance more right than he was wrong in terms of the environment, in terms of internet technology investment, in terms of infrastructure investment, in terms of, I don't know, maybe taking our budget surpluses and shoring up some of our infrastructure and our safety nets rather than just giving away his tax cuts.
There's no question we'd be better off with him as president than Bush.
But he's a big fucking nerd.
Then the
but
guy
he's a big fucking nerd.
Got his
Nobody
finger
wants to have
in
a
every
beer
oil
with
pie.
him.
Right.
So fuck him. But it's like I thought it's funny to see that this like the same thing where, you know, him getting a little bit the way he talks and the way he carries himself and the way he kind of the people just took it and ran with it, you know. Oh, well, Al Gore out there with a telescope and, you know, discovering an asteroid and all this shit.
No, I do. That's very true to life. It's pretty good stuff. I also like Daniel Stern here, getting frustrated by Ron and the president's demands here and throwing his papers and then realizing, oh, I actually needed those papers. Just like his comedic moments at the end of these very hard scenes. I think it's great.
Yeah, he's a very serious guy, important guy who also is kind of, you know, he's
they're
a
painting a
goofball.
picture of him being out of his depth, I think. Like,
Yeah.
it's one thing to be negotiating with people about the price of a screw on your assembly line. It's another thing to have nuclear powers enforcing their wishes on the state of the world and you having to deal with all these pressures from every side.
Yeah.
I think he might be a little out of his depth here.
Kind of deals you can make with very little leverage.
We'll see. We'll see if he becomes a traitor. The way that his previous.
You think the bullfinch is going to get her little finchy talons into him?
I don't know, man. Because I thought Margot was good at this job, and then look how that all turned out. So
True. All I'm saying is, Marv, is if you just go to the FBI, none of that will ever happen.
All right, let's go back to Happy Valley, where they're having problems figuring out how the Ranger can capture the asteroid with its weak engines, low thrust. After the meeting, Palmer sticks around to tell Danielle about Ed's shaky hand. There's a big swing. This is him really going out on a limb here, because, as Danielle says, this is a very serious accusation, and if he's wrong about it, but you know he just can't help what he saw. And he saw correctly. We know.
So it makes it so credible. Like if Sam comes in here, I saw Ed's hand shaking. Danielle would be like, okay, whatever. But this guy, like Ed's man, right hand man, who gives his big speech about how much he worships him as a hero since he's a little kid, and how he's the epitome of integrity and honesty and accountability and coming saying like, I know what this means and I'm still reporting it anyway. I mean, it's. I really like scenes like this because it show like Ed's kind of being hoisted by his own petard a bit. Like the way Ed's lived his life in the heroic kind of noble truth-telling fashion shaped his admirers such that they would quote unquote betray him like this because it's the right thing to do.
It is. I mean, like Ed's being extremely dishonorable.
Yes.
If it's that definition, taking responsibility even when it's hard, that is exactly the opposite of what Ed is doing. Yes, it would be 100%. Hard for him to say, I am not fit for duty right now. I need to take myself off of this mission and give it to someone who can handle it. That would be hard to do, and he's not.
Your wisdom, the practical knowledge you have, the fact that you could still be an important figure just hanging around the base and like training and advising and but that's not good enough. He's got to be the guy. He's got to be the guy with his hand on a stick calling the ball.
Yeah. And I get it. I do, but it's dishonorable when you're not that guy anymore to try and act like that guy.
But it's like I said, it's got to be hard. Like I've often, you see like big sports figures retire. How do you ever get over? And like being an astronaut for as long as he's done it in this particular alternate universe where like astronauts are these big. It's got to be. Yeah. How the hell do you ever?
You take the money from. You go back home to Earth. You ask Kelly if you can borrow a bunch of her Karen money, and then you start gambling on NASA-based shit, right?
Yeah.
You start betting millions of dollars on whether or not Dev's going to get to the asteroid before the Soviets. That's what you do. That's what you do.
It's like telling Tom Brady, yeah, the roar of the crowd's one thing, but have you tried going to a sports book in Vegas? You know,
I mean, it works for Michael Jordan, so well, at least when he's not trying to play baseball. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I've seen his documentary. It doesn't seem like he's resting easy on his laurels, you know.
True. All right. We get some more dream here. I think it's hard to tell if this is all happening like in another dream or if this is just a continuation of the dream that she was woken up from earlier. But Danielle's out. She's preparing Dani's meals when she catches the attention of Ed, who watches her go out to feed the guy he hates. And it's worth pointing out here that they are all very hungry. They're all getting malnourished real time here as we watch this episode. So this food is pretty valuable to them as well. And Dani asks Danielle, the bad Dani asks Danielle if he can please come back to base. She says, sorry, but no. This is how it has to be. Gives him a Bible.
That's rough. But I don't know what their personal relationship is. Maybe they had a Bible study group back when he was trying to get over being an alcoholic or whatever. I don't know. Maybe they have a connection, but
I think. I mean,
that's
so
rough. I know how I'd feel if I was in his position and someone gave me a Bible, and and if there's any Christians out there wondering, imagine you're in his position and someone hands you the Quran. You know, it's like
I can't.
That can be the thing that saved your life if you've got the certain background and beliefs, and but it also can be just such a hollow gesture. And I think Dani kind of knows it. I'm sorry, good Dani knows it when she's handing it to him. Well,
what can she do, right? Here's the interesting thing. I think she's the CO on this mission.
I think well, so like, wasn't it the case that Ed's kind of the commander because
he's working for Helios?
Yeah, but NASA was stranded. Like Russia got their ship blown up. NASA's stranded there without Helios. I think effectively Helios personnel are in command. So I think this is right.
That seems bonkers to me because they are not here. They are not the authority of the land. I would not think that they would be the authority of the land. But it's Mars. I don't know.
And whose facilities are? You know, it seems like it's like. But yeah, it's. I did wonder why that's the only way. Like, why keeping bad Dani, ineffective?
Well, that's the thing. She's making the choice that. Appeases Ed is probably too strong a way to say it, but she's making the choice that she thinks is right given the things that have happened here. And it's the choice that Ed would make in this scenario. And I think when you contrast that with what's happening now in Happy Valley, she's making the choices that Ed wouldn't make, but are probably still the right choices. The way that they react to those are night and day.
Okay.
And I kind of like the juxtaposition of it.
Yeah. I just wondered, like, why you can't bring the capsule back. Like, if you're worried about, him waking up in the middle of the night and murdering you all, like, then why don't you... Yeah, why does he have to be in isolation like that? Because that's... I mean, I'm pretty sure that's literally, like, you know, like holding people in solitary confinement is literally a human rights violation. I know you do it sometimes to protect people, and I know we do it here in this country just cause, but, like, I think internationally it is recognized as... a human rights violation, and it seems rough.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I don't necessarily feel a lot of sympathy for bad Dani here, but definitely the situation he's been put in is a bad situation.
He's in a bad spot, both literally and metaphorically. Like, you don't want to commit crimes and have a mental breakdown on Mars where people can get killed, but like this guy's mentally ill. He's off his he's recovering addiction, and he's off his medication, and he is completely alone in a godforsaken, inhospitable, you know, huffing North Korean farts, smelling North Korean rotting food. Like, it's bad.
Do you think he got the news about Karen's death? That Jim, his own brother, was specifically involved in that?
Had to have.
Because that's another layer that I didn't even think about.
Although I guess they could just keep it from him.
Danielle knows about it. Danielle's the only one who would keep it from him, I think. So she can't, and she can't say, "No, don't tell him." Well, why not? I don't know. He just doesn't need to know.
The other thing is, like, you got to think his wife knows, right? About like all the shit he's been up to at Mars, because like, you know, I noticed when he's looking at his wife and kids, like that's got a way too. It's like, what do you got to look forward to?
Oh yeah, you come back.
You're like a pariah on Mars. Like, maybe your wife will try to understand when you get back, and like you can try to rebuild something, but I don't know.
Yeah, he's got a kid. I don't know. I think he still has stuff to live for,
there's another shoe to drop too in later scenes I want to talk about, but
yeah. All right. Kelly tells Alex that she's going to Mars. He gets sad and angry and runs to his grandmother. She gets a very judgy look from Babushka.
It's rough.
What if you decide to stay forever like Poppy did? Oh, devastating.
Of course. How could you ever tell a 7-year-old otherwise? Because like that's his like Mars, the place the people that I love go and they never come back from. Yep. Because it must be awesome, more awesome than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it was rough. I don't got the like I said, in the grand scheme of things, For All Mankind versus my son, I don't got the courage, I guess, to do the brave thing for all mankind, because I could fucking never.
Yeah, she comes up with a better solution than giving up her dreams or leaving her family. So
yeah,
good for her. All right, Brant, the government relations guy, introduces himself to Aleda and asks if she's ready to get started contacting senators. She hasn't looked at the dossiers yet. That's going to become important pretty soon.
From government relations, look like they took in a lab all the douchiest parts from Thomas Middleditch and Will Arnett and put them into one human being.
Yep.
I think they cast him just so the lady could look him up and down and be like, oh, fuck, this guy.
Uh-huh. I can handle senators. I can handle the M7, but this guy, oh, Jesus.
Do you think she's going to rise to the occasion?
I do.
Because
I do. That seems to be her pattern. I think this will be a new moment of growth for her, and she'll have some growing pains. But yeah, I do ultimately think
she better start cracking the books, though, because it seems like she's going to go into this ill-prepared. But and it's not in her wheelhouse. Like I kind of fucked Dev for putting her in this position.
Yeah.
She wants to project manage a life on Mars thing. You're making her negotiate with heads of state about how to divvy up the asteroid pie. What?
Yeah. He's alienated everyone else, right? As far as I can tell, he doesn't have a board of directors anymore. He doesn't have a second fiddle in his company. He's just running it himself at this point.
Yeah, Dev is
upper
right
management
now, for sure. Yeah.
So there is no one to step in. I don't know. I have a lot of faith in Aleda. I think she does experience a lot of problems as she adapts to new situations, but also she grows into those roles. And it's a struggle, but it works out.
We'll see.
Mm-hmm. All right, Miles gets a message from his wife showing off their new house that his smuggling money has bought, and she implies that they might be living together again when he gets back, but they'll talk about it later.
We'll see if Samantha has anything to say about this. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel with this Miles stuff.
Same here. When he's looking over, when she's talking to the Italian guy, I'm like, this is fucked up, dude. You're feeling some sense of ownership because why?
Yeah. There's definitely a spark there. Now you got this stuff.
But they don't pursue it much in this episode, so I was grateful for that.
And the other, it's like, I kept on hearing like Gus Fring's voice in the back of my mind. What does a man do, Miles? A man provides. Like, It's like, is their relationship better for any reason other than, man provide. Like, man got slightly bigger cave free from father-in-law. Yeah, man. I was like, that's weird. Is their relationship real, or is he just a goofball that they got married young and it's kind of a loser, and scales fell from his wife's eyes, and I don't know. I don't know how to invest in this, especially when he's making eyes at Samantha.
I don't think you should. Is the thing. I
That's
really don't
bad.
think
I
so
should
because Miles
it,
looks like he's headed off a cliff, in my opinion.
he already fell off one. I just sat at the bottom waiting to die.
Yeah,
like
see?
Sam had to save his ass. Like what are these women seeing in this guy?
Yeah.
I guess he's got motivation. He's got ambition.
Unless they're telling a conversion story here of ideology where he goes over to Sam's side for some reason, I think his story is one of greed and one of Icarus, flying too close to the sun, right? He's exporting these rocks under the nose of the guy who exports shit or imports shit, and now he's just going to get caught up in it, and then it's going to come to light, and then he's screwed. I don't think this has a happy ending.
And who knows? Like I've been cold on some new characters before. I didn't know what to make of Dev, and look what they've done to him with this second season. So maybe they'll turn things around with Sam or Miles, but right now
it's the way they introduce
time.
Miles that makes me think they're not going to, because he is that guy who gets sucked into an opportunity that he doesn't understand and gets too invested in it and then gets fucked over by it. So
yeah, because even getting this job, he overestimated his education, lied about his resume. Like he's always kind of been, running a little bit ahead of himself.
Absolutely. And I assume it's all going to come crashing down. Sam returns to quarters and tells Miles that she got her job on the Ranger crew, and that's what she wanted, but she's disturbed by how powerless she feels in this position, or in this operation. And Miles invites her in on the Red Obsidian operation, but she wants to go to the Ranger.
Yeah, I don't. This whole scene, man, I don't know. Like she comes like this line where she's like, I see all of us running. We're all happy, like we won the lottery, but we're the real powerless ones up here. And he's like, well, see, that's what I'm saying. You should just start selling rocks like me. I'm like, this.
Yeah, you should buy into the system more thoroughly, and then you have a chance of becoming the person with the power over the powerless. Is essentially what he's saying, right? Abandon all your ideals and come work on being the powerful within this broken system.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the Italian mafia line, stop bowing and scraping before the big shots and just be a big shot yourself. Like stop working within the system, make your own system.
Sure.
That's the only thing you can trust in. Like I said, I see and broadly agree with the points they're trying to make here. I just think they're articulated in a way that is not the most compelling.
Well, maybe we should talk about the next scene that I know you're going to like a whole lot more, where Ilya's stocking his latest product, and he finds it wrapped up in an ad for Mars jewelry, which makes him realize, or at least suspect very strongly, that Miles is smuggling behind his back.
I really try hard to think about whether something's truly dumb or whether I'm just a little over a storyline and my suspension of disbelief is already broken. But when he unwraps that bottle and it's a full page ad for Martian rocks, what are the fucking odds?
Such a coincidence.
But this is all Miles probably lives in a town that's adjacent to the rocket industry. And obviously that town is where his wife lives, where the jeweler's at, and the hometown. It's one of the dumber ways to find out Ilya is being betrayed, quote unquote, by Miles, I thought. But
yeah, I think a better way to do this is to find evidence of a secondary smuggling operation going on, and then him having to wonder, is this part of the thing that Miles brought my attention to earlier?
Yeah, I thought he would be maybe doing someone had a last minute order, so he's going to do one last minute piece of packing into cargo bay, and he finds a cache of rocks he didn't know about, or he was going to unwrap and there's going to be an envelope of cash that was hidden in something that Miles is supposed to stock,
or even the weight's off after he takes his own stuff out, right? And something's unexpected about this package,
But this is literally
a picture of.
It's almost like a post-it note has on that oh yeah, by the way, Miles is selling moon rocks.
Yeah. I'm with you. Not my favorite. It wasn't a deal breaker, but we'll revisit that here in a bit. So let's go to Dev in scenes that I think are better here. He drives out to a Kenyan community center to say goodbye to his mother for good, because he's staying on Mars. He's never coming back. He's old man Edding it. It's a complicated and emotional goodbye for Dev, and he does not part on good terms with his mother. Which, I don't know. I don't like to see that. Even for a guy that I don't necessarily love, like Dev.
And I don't have enough information to really judge the dynamics here. Like, I'm not, like, you know, like, I agree with a lot of what his mom's saying, but I'm also, like, I had this conversation with my dad, like, 4 years ago. We were talking politics, and things were getting heated. I was like, so you're just telling me you raised me wrong? Because you raised me to, like, you know, not tell a bunch of lies and to work hard and to, like, you know, have some integrity and honor. But apparently I'm supposed to know that you can just ditch that when the times get tough, or like that, you know, it's like, why did you raise me to believe these things if that's not how the world actually worked, and the idea that, like, you raised me to like to be in the world that you want to be in, but you didn't equip me for the world I'm actually in. This Harambe stuff, I tried Harambe, but, like, we also know enough about Dev that, did you really try Harambe, or did you try Harambe filtered through your own ambitions? Like, it's all everybody together and unified if you're pulling on the rope I want you to pull on. That's I don't know, which I think that's fascinating, because there is a reality in which this mom has tried to sabotage, you know, left dad high and dry for selfish reasons, and, you know, put it on a young kid to abandon, like, you know, abandon your father, come with me. Or it could be that she tried to escape from a complete megalomaniacal psycho, and, you know, the Dev's caught in his father's cult of personality. I don't know, but like I said, it's really fascinating to see Dev himself try to, like, struggle through these answers. What's your take on it? I'm curious.
So I lean more toward his mother's side here, because I've seen who Dev is, and Dev strikes me, like I said earlier, is that guy with extreme ambition, and I think he gets that from his father. He clearly doesn't get that from his mother, right? His mother is not some high power, you know, business executive or something.
She seems like she's a high up in the community center, and, you know, like,
which can easily be explained by her Harambe mentality, right? Like, it doesn't. I don't ascribe that to ambition. But at least because that's not how we typically define success in our society. I don't know. You look at it through a different lens, and maybe that is ambition. But to me, Dev got that from his father, and I've seen evidence of Dev's ambition all over the place. It's undeniable.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's toxic in a lot of ways. And so when his mother labels it as such, I think I agree with her.
Yeah, and I tend to, like, I see a Kenyan community center where people are working together to do fundraising, and, you know, there's people there forming a community. I tend to think of that as good, you know?
Yeah.
And just trying to pilfer the cosmos for money is bad, but those family dynamics can be complex. And there's something about his mom being very pushy and judgy about her view of the world onto him that made me think that, like, you know, maybe she's right, but she went about trying to press these values on Dev in the wrong way, or something.
That could certainly be the case. Yeah.
And I do think that, like, yeah, you can make a mistake by trying to raise your kids too idealistic, and then they get kicked into the teeth by the world, and, like, you gotta do a job about trying to, like I said, raise them to be in the world that you want to live in, but also prepare them for how the real world's going to be, you know? But yeah, it is a great scene, and it felt unsatisfying because neither of these people are getting what they want, you know?
And then it all comes back around with the Kelly stuff in a later scene, and I think, yeah, it worked really well for me.
Yeah, these things built beautifully on each other.
So Hobson tries to smooth things over with Irina after the president's comments. She suggests that they negotiate a new agreement over the asteroid haul splits. She wants to host an M7 meeting in Russia to do so, and he agrees to talk to the president about it, reluctantly.
Al Gore refuses to apologize to the Russians, apparently, because the summit is being held in Russia. Which, that's complicated in, doing formal apologies and whatnot, and bring, playing the statesmanship game is complex, but
Yep. I don't know. He's got an election to win. He can't be seen apologizing to Russians, to admitting to mistakes.
plus you also that's this whole Nash equilibrium and negotiation, like it's not just individual games, like if you cave in on this round, that sets expectations and poor boundaries and whatnot. I'm honestly glad that none of this is my responsibility. This seems like incredibly stressful.
Yeah, agreed. I wouldn't want to do it. But I'm glad there are people out there who do want to do it.
When she says, "I need an act of contrition to get my guy back to the table," like Marv's face is priceless.
Yeah. All right, dinner time at Aleda's house. Brant calls her to tell her about the M7 summit, which is happening in Russia, and since Dev is gone, she needs to pack her bags to be Helios's representation there. This is interesting. You've got a conference that's happening in the Soviet Union. You've got a former NASA director that's happening in the Soviet Union, and you've got her acolyte coming to the Soviet Union. What are the odds of later being reunited with Margot here? The quote unquote dead Margot.
Sure, like if the Bullfinch brings Margot to this conference,
insane, yeah.
Extraordinarily insane.
But that's the scenario they're setting up, totally, right?
Maybe the scenario is Margot watching from home and she sees Aleda there at the summit, and that moves the ball because, honestly, I don't have any faith that Margot's not going to be at that conference, even though that's the stupidest thing. And
she might be testifying on television in front of a live American audience. I don't know with this show sometimes, but.
That's what I'm saying. This Ilya Miles Lee situation is so bonkers that I can't rule it out, and that scares me a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Bullfinch is a non-serious person if she brings Margot to this international conference with U.S. officials. Like, Margot didn't die 100 years ago, quote unquote. She died not even
8
10
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're gonna
9
have
maybe
yeah. There's no fucking way.
I wouldn't think so. Maybe they'll end up at the same bakery. I don't know. It'll just be a happenstance that she walks down the street to the newsstand or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think they could make it. They could have that be more an accidental disclosure. Just like
Aleda smart. She figures out, this is Margot's work or something, right?
There's that, or there's a wrong place, wrong time, or a last minute schedule change, or a hotel switch, or. I mean, I can think of a lot of ways that you could do that, but I really hope it's just not they're all going at the conference table and they look across the table and oh my God.
Yeah.
Fancy meeting you here,
Right. We'll see. But that's the first thing I thought. I'm like, they're both going to be in the same country. Maybe they'll meet up. Kelly says goodnight to Alex. She's broken up about leaving him. She watches some of her mother's old video messages. And I love how they play this because you think these messages are about her going on a space mission, following her dreams, things like that. But it turns out, no, Karen is telling her she's going to be amazing at being a mother. And boy, in this time and place right now, I don't know whether she needs this encouragement or whether this is twisting the knife. But it seems to inspire her to figure out a solution.
Yeah, it got pretty misty watching the scene.
Yeah, dude.
And what a gift that is, too, that, that they've had all this telecommunication over the course of months and years, and you've got something that, what a shot in the arm to have your mom from beyond the grave tell you how much she believes in you and how strong you are and how you could do anything, but also reminding you of how important your son is and family and things. It's a real gift to have something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And it makes perfect sense that Kelly would as soon as she gets home, find her, just save everything that she's got from her mom,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep, definitely got misty-eyed during that scene. It's a great one. Danielle observes Ed trying to see if his hand is shaking, and then she also watches a video message from her husband requesting her speech for his son, her stepson's marriage. She records a response but falters in the middle and stops recording.
Why do you think she faltered?
She's thinking about Ed. She's thinking about Dani. She's thinking about. It was specifically when she mentioned partnerships, I noticed that she fell apart, and seeing her partnership with Ed fall apart in this episode, I think it's just too much for her in the moment.
Yeah. I've seen the relationship of like a CO and an XO be of like, you know, the ship's dad versus the ship's mom, and like, you know, that partnership and that the way you got to trust and support each other and have a unified front, and also the fact that like, look at all that I've sacrificed, and then look at what Ed has been running from, the same things, and like I'm here, like I thought this is such a great constructed scene.
Good point.
To like really contrast, put in high relief the differences between Danielle and Ed,
and throwing into high contrast here what the decision that Kelly's trying to make in the moment, right? Having her actively struggling with, am I going to put myself on one of those paths?
Yeah, the way this episode really hits all those and keeps all those balls up in the air, and each one makes the next one, you know, hit that much harder is. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, they bring it to a big crescendo here, which I love. And we'll get to the head of it here in a second. We get some more dreams where Danielle's dreaming of the malnourished crew, of being extremely weak. She's packing up Bad Dani's last meal to take to him, and Ed volunteers to go out there with her. And when they get to Dani's capsule, they find his corpse sitting outside in a spacesuit.
I was hoping for the North Korean pistol. I was hoping for, like I said, opening the sunroof. I was whelmed by him just sitting there dead in a spacesuit. And that's the other thing. These goofy-ass spacesuits, man. A little bit of the drama is bled from seeing Ed's head wobbling in this giant blue suit. God damn it.
Chub suits. I don't know, man. I agree. And they weren't ever going to get a huge reaction from me in this scene because I don't really care about Dani very much.
Are we supposed to understand that they were going to let Dani starve? It's like, well, we're out of food for the convict, so... Or was it just kind of like we're all starved? Because, like, that's the next thing. It's like, how far was supply away? You know, are we like... is this like The Martian? Like, okay, well, the supply ship's coming back in 4 weeks, so we just, you know, one last push of starvation and we'll all be fine? Or are we supposed to understand that, like... Was this a little bit heroic that Dani, the bad Dani, could see the writing on the wall and like, I run out of food and I'm depressed and I don't want to do this anymore, and yeah, that'd be the worst. That'd be the most selfish way to heroically kill yourself. Like, okay, I'm gonna wait till we get down to one last can of sardines and like, all right, I
can't.
I see where this is going.
It's just not responsible of me, you know.
Yeah, this last can of I don't know, but I was trying to think like maybe is that what you're going for?
No, I think it became too much for Dani. The shame of it, the shame
and
of all of it.
Like I said,
not just what he did there, but what he did with Karen, all of it.
You look at Happy Valley; it looks like a depression fort. Like people can barely stand up. Like Lee's staggering around. The doctor's giving people like fucking fluids to keep them on their feet. Dani's going through all this plus everything else on top. So like he's starving and in a glass case of emotions, and responsible for the deaths of many
glass and titanium and
yeah.
I don't know. I didn't feel like super emotional in this scene, but the thing I was thinking about is how can Danielle not blame Ed for this? I mean, she didn't want him out here.
Himself for this.
How can Ed not blame himself? Right?
Ed fought for this to happen, and Dani's prophecy came true, and they both look gutted. They both look gutted and haunted by it. But like, I'm really coming to the conclusion that Ed has just not processed this. Ed is just blamed, you know, like shoved aside the blame and thrown himself into the work. And if he ever stopped being the hard charging dude, he might have to think about this for a minute, and then what's going to happen?
Sure, sure. And we've seen a lot of Ed's career, but is this the first time he's made a decision like this that he would have to question? You know, if
I mean, for pushing Gordo back into the program is another.
absolutely, yeah,
I mean, that worked out kind of, all right in the end.
it did. But then it sent, Jimmy and Dani down this other path. So like,
True.
there's some fallout from those decisions. And yeah, I think you're
True.
right. Ed's just trying to avoid. He's trying to keep himself cognitively distracted, I guess, to avoid dealing with the consequences of his actions. All right, Kelly goes to Dev to tell him that she wants to bring her son with her to Mars. Given Dev's complicated past with his family, he welcomes it in this scene, which, it's really weird to me how Kelly delivers this speech, because to me it comes across as not a pre-written speech, but a premeditated speech, a speech of like, okay, I'm going into Dev's office, I'm going to say this, 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 and this. And I think that's a fool's errand with a guy like Dev, because you get to the first this, and Dev goes, nope, I've got this other plan for you. Here's what we're going to do. And he just totally derails your entire prepared speech. But in this scenario, because he is so distracted by his own personal issues here, it works. She got real lucky with this speech.
And he's genuinely, I thought it was pretty affecting. He's genuinely moved by this mother's love for her son. And like trying to find a way that she can do the stuff for all mankind and also do the stuff for her son.
Well, this is what he wanted from his mom, right? Like you look at what he said to her, like, you left us because you didn't want to deal with the ambition. This is Kelly doing the exact opposite, bringing her son along,
And that's the thing that bothers me about Dev's mom is like, okay, please come. Why did you make the children choose between the father? Like, what circumstances led you to that the kids felt like they had to make that choice? Like, you don't want to be the father, fine, but like, what the fuck? The fact that she is, not putting her son in that position and trying to move. Now, I do think that the writers did some heavy lifting by making the son have a medical condition that could magically be improved by Mars. And
yeah, totally.
And you know what? Developing in microgravity, the stresses of the launch, the child, like it could be that space adventure is the cause of the genetic problems, or not the genetic, the congenital problems that the kid had. Who knows?
Alex is just going home. This isn't some dangerous. He's just going home, man.
Yeah. But I do. Yeah, he was the first Martian. I do think it'd be interesting if she was just like, what if she was just risking her son's life and taking him away where he's not going to have any kids his own age to play with, but they definitely did a lot of heavy lifting with or making a more interesting dramatic choice by having him have a condition that could be improved by Mars.
Yeah, for sure.
I do wonder if this is going to be a big lower decks kerfluffle, though. Oh, we had to live. No, we couldn't bring our kids along, but I guess the important people can. Yeah, like the important people can bring their kids because they're important, not us.
Yeah, good point.
Extra mouths to feed, yeah. It's like and honestly, they're 100% right. Because
it's a double
Miles
standard.
Miles couldn't bring his girls and his wife up here.
No way, not a chance.
But Kelly, she's important.
Huge double standard. Yep. Looking forward to more attention up there on Happy Valley. That's what we need.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go over to Ilya, trying to confirm his suspicions about Miles' Mars rock smuggling operation. And then he pretty much confirms it. At least Miles is not paying much attention to the money, so he thinks he probably has got something else going on. So they share a toast to success.
Okay, I'm an idiot. I thought that I'm actually thinking that Ilya poisoned him.
It was definitely a thought in my mind when I was watching it. Like, is he killing Miles here?
It seems like a wild stretch to be like, oh, he doesn't care about the money, even though we've been working together like hand in glove for 6 months now. He must be. He's too comfortable with that Martian smuggling. I don't know.
Well, so him saying, aren't you going to count it? And he's like, no, I trust you. To me, that says he has previously been counting it and he has stopped counting it. Which, is that because the trust has grown, or is that because he has the Mars rock operation?
I think you're right. Because I was also like, why would he poison him and then, like, send him off and, was going to, like, or is it going to be like that, the Putin special where you slowly poison him with polonium and,
Not too slowly, though, or he builds up a resistance to it, and then you can't poison him with it.
He gets a superpower.
Yeah. I mean, joke's on Ilya. He's been poisoning him the entire time, just with booze.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
That stuff apparently is pretty strong.
Mm-hmm.
I do kind of like this ploy, though. It played out pretty well in my mind. Him just, because the way he nonchalant, I thought it was bonkers. The way he just like pulled off half the stack from the table and handed it to him like that's his payment. I mean, it can't be precise unless he's some, I don't know, magician doing card tricks here and he knows exactly how to cut a deck in half every time perfectly. But I don't know, it seemed crazy. And then I realized, oh no, this is a test to see if he cares at all about this money.
Yeah, I think you nailed it.
All right, let's go over to Danielle in this final scene confronting Ed about concealing his medical condition. Wow. Oh, wow. Does he get personal? And then Danielle does the same. She just unloads on him, removes him from command with no regrets.
Yeah, those double fuck yous. Whoo, a long time coming. And honestly, I stood up and clapped. Because this was a heavyweight fight, and they were not leaving any powder in the can. I
almost thought it would get physical. I was like,
God,
because it was so emotionally violent. I was scared. I was terrified.
And he's old enough. I think Danielle could take him.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be
1/3
surprised.
gravity. It's the great equalizer, babe. No, I did too, and I was like thinking like if Ed puts hands on. I'm going to enlist on Mars just so I can go up and kick his ass. Like, I'm taking the next boat out there.
Unforgivable.
Jesus.
He doesn't. He shows some restraint here, but man, this is a knockdown, drag out emotionally.
Especially since he's just like reaching for like, it's like, oh, so you can be on. And Danny's like, God, fuck no. I want to be back toasting my son's wedding, you asshole. I don't care about first on this, first on that. Who gives a shit? Like, I just want what's best for this mission so I can go to fuck home. And then him being like, it's like, and it's the things he said is wild. Like, oh, you wanted to go off to be with your family? I must make you the real runner. And, I just, and the act of and Ed's arrogance, thinking that clipping his wings is the worst that she can do as base commander. Or that's the worst that she would. And then she hasn't really had the balls to do that, right? Or the ovaries, the gonads, whatever.
Well, she does. Totally.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a thing. Like, do not mistake Danielle Poole as not having the stuff, man.
No.
A steely-eyed missile person as I've ever seen, as I've said before. And, man, when she said, I've been putting up with your shit for 30 years, watching you make wrong decision after wrong decision, frequently being the person saying, Ed, you're making a wrong emotional decision, thinking you're God's gift to the cosmos when you're really just a pathetic old man that doesn't know when to call the day. Yeah, and every weapon that Ed went to reach for was just unloaded, blunt.
Yeah, because Danielle's in the right of it. I mean, this is all coming from Ed's own feelings of inadequacy, Ed's feelings of shame for the decisions he's made. I mean, all of this stuff that he is trying to distract himself from, it's not working. He's not actually distracting. He might mentally be distracting himself, but emotionally, it's all coming out every single second that he's on screen. And it's kind of gross.
Yeah, and man, that line where he's like, don't do anything you're going to regret. And she like levels her shoulders, looks at him and says, Ed, I've got a lot of regrets in my life. This ain't going to be one of them. Oh, man. And the thing is so I said that is it possible that Ed is going to try to use his connections, his NASA connections, his Helios connections, the fact that he's widely seen as a hero, is he going to try to make trouble for Danielle? Part of me says yeah, because he's Ed Baldwin and that's just what he's going to do. But man, you look at when Danielle leaves the room and how he kind of like reels and not a complete breakdown, but noticeably slumps and like leans against that bike for support. like I said, his worst nature might prevail, but I think he knows she's right.
I mean, at the very least, anybody who supports him would have to have him medically examined to see whether or not they should support him. And immediately, his story just falls on its face if his hand shakes during a doctor's examination, right? I mean,
what if he
there's
shows
no
up
hiding
with eyes
that, and this is the crux of it. So he's done.
Yeah,
he's done.
What if he shows up, eyes red as the devil's prick, right hand steady as the Rock of Gibraltar? You know, like that's.
No, his hand's fine. He smokes a lot of weed, but his hand's totally fine.
Yeah, he's got to wait to 8 hours before he goes into space, and then his hands are shaking. But yeah, he's no, I think he's, because that's the thing. Like that, he's talking this whole, you know, he's acting like, oh, you're making this bullshit accusation, and the ultimate retort is, well, then go get checked out by a medical.
Yeah,
they clear you. You know what, Ed? If they clear you, there's no other hand I'd rather have on that stick.
Right.
But
they won't.
He knows it's
because he knows it, and that's the thing. This is like I said, shame. It's, you know, personal agony that he's not going to get to do the thing he loves anymore because he's too fucking old.
And he's telling on himself because I think by accusing Danielle of making this to be political, like she's just doing this to take him out of when he knows it's not true.
Yeah.
He's telling himself that this is what he would do. Like if the shoe was on the other foot. It kills me because, like I said, Ed, top 3 character in the show. He's done a lot of crazy shit, but also he is the guy that, you know, like I'll never forget how I felt last season when I really thought they stacked Ed onto the surface of Mars, and he walked away from that, and I'm like, God damn, Ed Baldwin did it again.
But this is it, man. I think this is his Waterloo, right? This is the moment that his career finally comes to an end. There's no way around it.
He's going to have to spend the rest of his time on Elba because Danielle's not taking him back to continental Europe, that's for sure.
Sure. Yeah. Only question I have coming out of this is how many years will it take for them to find Ed on deck level 4? When he's hidden out, refusing to go home. He's living in there like a Morlock or some shit. I don't know.
They're gonna have to send Corporal. They're gonna have to send Corporal Hicks with a team full of Colonial Marines with motion trackers. Boing, boing. The Baldwin's in. He's in the walls. He's in the walls. He's
and his blood might literally be acid by then. I don't know, but yeah.
He keeps on choking on this much bile. That's where he's headed.
Mm-hmm.
So does Ed redeem himself before the end of the season?
That's my actual real only question. Yeah.
Does he redeem himself through his death, or does he go back hand in hand with Kelly? Well, I don't think Kelly's leaving Mars.
She doesn't have a reason to immediately.
Son's medical condition can be improved on Mars, then why would you leave? So maybe does Ed just retire on Mars and is just Poppy for the rest of us? Because that's a way you could redeem himself. But I do feel like Ed's going to do it with one last heroic sacrifice.
Man, that feels so Tracy and Gordo to me, though. Like
and
it feels like retread.
He doesn't got it. He doesn't got it no more. That's the other thing. Like he's not
True.
Gordo had been running. You know, he'd been running a lot. He'd been training for that. Last year, Ed had been
drowning himself in the pool. Yeah,
Ed was doing steroid cycles last year. He's on the devil's lettuce. He's going homeopathic on this shit. I hope he finds another way to redeem himself because last minute heroics. I'm not even sure if I'd buy it at this point.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm excited to see what happens. Honestly. Ed, you got one last chance. You can't do it through the space program, but maybe with your family, you could have some redemption.
All right. FAM stands for All Mankind. FAM at baldmove.com is how you give us feedback. Real quick, I want to tell people how they can keep up with us. All of our social media is at baldmove, except for TikTok, at baldusmove there. If you want to find out what else we're doing Fargo. The New Year's going to be having True Detective. We're in the midst of our Christmas celebrations for our club members. Which, by the way, if you want in on that, if you want some more Christmas in your life, we got. If you think of a classic Christmas movie. 90% sure we've already covered it. It's exclusive. All of our Christmas content exclusive to club members. Support.baldmove.com is how you get more Bald Move in your life, ad-free feeds, etc. Once again, if you want to send us feedback, fam@baldmove.com is how you do it. Otherwise, that's going to do it for this episode of For All Mankind. Can't wait to see where Ed lands on the hero versus villainy scale. Maybe we'll find out next week. Until then, I'm your host, Aaron.
And I'm Jim.
Bye, Bob.